Okay, this is inside the car, so the studs, I've got the studs in the car. This one here went in a little bit crooked. It's kind of angled back, which I think is the reason that my measurements front to back, side to side, and diagonally ended up a little bit different, like a 1/16, almost an eighth of an inch. I think that's what that problem is right there. I think the base of it is in exactly the right place. So these are the 4 studs in this side, and there's one, there's one, there's one in the light, and there's one in there. This is inside the console, and I don't know if you can see, but up in the front there, there's a screw terminal. It's got like a 4-gauge 12-volt wire that comes in to feed all the ancillary stuff inside here. So I'll feed off of that to run the power to these seats. Seat is in. I don't have a nut on that guy, we just bolted to the floor. That guy over there is now set. He's actually bolted to the floor. The 2 front ones are bolted to the floor. This works. And has good travel. Let me back this all the way out. See, that one right there is bolted here, and this one over here is kind of tucked under a little bit. But after getting it all bolted in, it seems like I've got good headroom from the top of the seat to the headliner. So I think I'm pretty well set. Let me pull this out. I'm going to sit in it and move it around. Yeah. Perfect, I think. All I got to do is pull that back out, weld that one bracket on, and I should be good. I've got that bracket marked. Let's see, can you see it? Yeah, I used white paint to mark its position. The top edge of it, the holes, there'll be 2 more holes on the other side, and the end where it fits. I'll pull the seat back out, weld that, and then I'll prime and paint all this stuff and put these things in for good. This thing should be good to go. Should have it all back together by tomorrow. Awesome. I have to give a shout out to my capable help here. This is Darwin. He's my supervisor. How you doing, buddy boy? You help everything you can, can't you? You get in the car when I'm not here. You ready to go in? You don't have to. There's food in your bowl. That's my boy. Back in the garage now. I've got this piece sitting where it needs to be. I'm going to try to weld this on camera. I've never tried welding on camera before with this little sports cam. Hope it don't burn it up. But anyway, I'm going to give that a shot and see how that works. Leave it there. Got those little holes welded up on the side on both sides. It's tacked on both sides. Those holes there are filled in. And these are wet cloths. You know, sometimes you do things, you get focused on what you're doing, you lose track of little tiny details. The welding shields that I'm using for this are terry cloth, and they're wet. Unfortunately, when first time I did this, I neglected to see if they were flameproof or not. Obviously they're not. Luckily I'm not married, or boy I would be in deep kimchi. But this right here was on fire a couple of times before I figured it out. It would seem obvious to most people that do this, but wasn't to me. So anyway, I think my next step is to let that cool off a bit, grind down the horrible welding, wire brush it, and then paint it. Just a quickie shot. Everybody's welded on. Now they've been primed, and they'll be painted tonight. Hopefully I'll be able to put these guys on back in the car tomorrow. Used etching primer on all of this. I am going to leave those screws in there, even though I welded them. I tacked them on both sides. I'm going to leave those screws in there just for extra measure. So next shot will be when it's painted. Like I said, sometimes you overlook obvious things when you have resources that you forgot. I built this handy dandy little hoist in my garage to help me lift heavy things. And lifting this thing up like that with these toe straps lets me paint and prime every area on this thing all in one shot instead of having to prime a little bit, turn it over, and do another little bit. I can shoot it all at one time. So, just not paying that much attention, I guess. Need to keep an eye on my resources and realize what I've got. Sometimes I forget. That sure made that a lot easier, though. This is my passenger seat. It's finished. It's ready to go in the car. It's all primed and painted. Everything's ready to rock and roll. I was working on the driver's seat and I kept thinking, why am I crawling around on the floor? Should be an easier way to be able to paint this thing. And I kept thinking, there's got to be a way to get this thing up on a table to where I can paint it. And as I was walking through, I almost hit my head on that hoist chain right there. I spent a lot of time, effort, designing and building this thing last year, and it didn't dawn on me to use it for this until this afternoon. So I got my motorcycle straps, dropped this thing down. Now this thing moves around all over the garage. Well, not all over the garage, but all over a pretty big part of it. I can put it anywhere in this area that I want to, and it's suspended to the point that I can paint above it and below it and not have to paint one side of it, wait for it to dry, flip it over, and then paint the other side. So that's my next project, is to paint this thing. Okay, getting ready to paint. Uh-oh. I think somebody wants out. You know out, Darwin? There he goes. I think that's got it. Need to get a light, go across it, make sure. Okay, let's look at it with a light. Pretty good coverage, I'd say. Oops, looks like I missed a spot there. I'll have to come back and hit that. Okay, let's get the camera. I mean the camera. Paint. How many dumbass pills did I take today? And hit it. Got that. I believe that's going to be good. I'll let that dry. And I believe I can put that in the car tomorrow. Oops. Now, just for grants, we'll let that hang there till it dries. Cool. Just before putting these things in the car, I have got the console out of the car and exposed the terminal strip that's in there. But I wanted to find out how much current these things drew and put an inline fuse for them. So, came out of my little power supply here. Goes through this little connector. The plus side goes through the input to my amp gauge. Come out of the minus side of my amp gauge, and it goes to the plus side of this this setup right here. That's my little 10 amp fuse. So I've measured this before. They draw, looks like about almost 3 amps when you got motors running in this thing. And this is about a 2-foot long cord that will go from the terminal strip under the dash in the console down to this little spot right here. These two little guys are WAGO terminals. So the center pin is the input, power, and ground from the terminal strip, and then there's a hot output and a ground output for each side that goes up to each of the seats. So this is, both of these guys are hooked up now, and they both work. And you can see it's about 3.2 amps for the forward and backward motion of the seat. That's the driver's seat. And let's go over here to the passenger seat. It should be about the same, I think. Yeah, now the up and down, that's running 2 motors. That's pushing almost 4 amps. So the 10 amp fuse ought to be enough to literally run both of them at the same time. But the next phase is to bolt these things in the car. These all got painted last night, and they're all ready. And this is the passenger seat. This is the one I did first, and it's ready to put in. So next thing is to take this cable, screw it into the terminal strip, route these wires under the carpet underneath where the seat is. And I'll just wire these guys into the power and ground on this connector here that actually came out of the seat. There's one on each side. These 2 little wires here, I don't know if those are for the heated seats or if they're for something else. They're too small, looks like, for heated seats. I bet they're load sensors or something like that to tell when somebody's sitting in the seat. I'll bet you this is a much heavier gauge wire. I bet that one's the heated stuff. And these, I don't know what all of those do. There's a couple of pretty heavy gauge wires in there, and the rest of them are little tiny, like signal wires. Don't know. Oh, they may be airbags. I'm not sure. No, airbags. I believe these are the airbags, I think, from what the guy told me. These will be just tied off. They're not going anywhere. And I don't know what that does. The next stage is to put these guys in, and I'll be happy, I think. Next stage of this setup, while I have the seats and console and everything out of the car, I made some effort to try to clean up the carpet, and boy, can't believe all the crap you can collect underneath these things. So this is a terminal strip that I've got up here. It's got a ground bus on it, it's got a battery constant, and it's got a 12-volt switched bus on it. This is my cable that I've got connected up with the fuse in line. That's a 10 amp fuse connected to the ground and the switched voltage. So I don't know if I should connect that thing up to constant battery or switched battery. I think I'm going to leave it on switched battery, because the way this switch battery works, there's a 10 gauge wire coming from the battery through I think a 20 amp fuse that comes down to feed this bus right here, and it's controlled with a relay. When I turn the key switch on or the accessories on, then it energizes that relay, and that connects up everything here on the 12 volt switched. So this wire runs here, it comes to here, comes to these WAGO terminals. One of them goes to that side, the other one goes under the carpet to here. Now the one thing I'm not 100% sure of is this coming across this hump right here. I hope everybody clears and the wires don't bind up. But my next trick is to get the seats out here, get them in, and then connect up these connectors here, because all this stuff is already set up and ready to go. All I got to do is put the seats in, bolt them down, and connect them up, and we should be ready to go, I hope. I'll be back as soon as I get those seats in there and running. Passenger seat is now in, bolted down, everything clears. Everybody's happy. Turn on the key to accessories, and it moves. Cool. Now I get to put the driver's seat in. Okay, so everything is out of the garage. All the tools and shrapnel are back in the garage. Seats are in, and they all work. And I am not unhappy with the way they came out. Sitting in them, I'm not too tall. This can come down. The seats are down all the way. They move forward and backward, plenty enough for me to reach the pedals and move the backrest up and down to get to the steering wheel correctly. but I think it looks pretty good, and they're real comfortable. Passenger side. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll clean these up and shoot a video of the final product. I would crank it up, but I've run the battery down by running these seats so much. This car hadn't cranked in a couple of weeks. So once this guy gets all charged back up, I think I'm going to be anxious to drive him tonight. It's been a fun project.